The recycled air tasted like copper and old fears as I leaned over the navigation console, watching Kepler Station grow larger in our view screen. 3 days out from Titan Harbor, and this should have been the easy part. A routine salvage run to pick up decommissioned mining equipment, the kind of job that paid decent credits for minimal risk. Except Kepler Station was completely dark. "Captain Vasquez, you seeing this?" I called over my shoulder, my voice echoing strangely in the sudden quiet of our bridge. The usual chatter of incoming traffic control, docking requests, and commercial broadcasts that should have been flooding our comm channels had died to nothing but static whispers. Rosa moved up beside me, her weathered hands gripping the edge of the console. In the blue light reflecting off the view screen, the premature silver in her hair looked almost white. "When's the last time we got a response from station control?" I checked the logs, though I already knew the answer. 47 minutes ago. Standard automated beacon then. Nothing. Through the reinforced transparasteel, Kepler Station hung against the star field like a dead thing. The massive, cylindrical structure should have been blazing with navigation lights, busy with the constant stream of freighters and passenger transports that made it one of the busiest trade hubs in the outer colonies. Instead, it rotated slowly in the darkness, its docking bays yawning open like empty mouths. The silence pressed against my eardrums, after 20 years working freight runs through this sector, the absence of radio chatter felt fundamentally wrong, like walking into a crowded marketplace and finding it completely abandoned, with half-eaten meals still sitting on the tables. "Could be a power grid failure," I offered, though even as I said it, the explanation felt inadequate. Stations like Kepler had redundant systems layered on redundant systems. Even if the main reactor went down, emergency power should have kept basic communications online. Rosa was quiet for a long moment, studying the readouts scrolling across her command display. The soft, blue glow painted worry lines deeper into her face. "James, when did humans pull out of this sector?" I pulled up the Colonial Administration files, feeling that familiar knot of unease that came with thinking about the withdrawal. Official records show the last human technical advisors left Kepler Station 18 months ago. 18 months. She said it like she was tasting something bitter. And now it's dark. The metallic tang in the air seemed to intensify as our life support systems worked harder to process the recycled atmosphere. Through the view screen, distant stars provided the only illumination, cold pinpricks of light that made the dead station look even more isolated and abandoned. "Orders, Captain?" I asked, though part of me already knew what she'd say. Rosa Vasquez had never walked away from a mystery in her life, and the salvage contract was just paperwork compared to the questions hanging in the vacuum around us. She straightened. Decision made. "Take us in for docking, but keep the engines warm and prep the emergency undocking sequence." As I began the approach, the silence seemed to follow us, creeping through the hull like a living thing. The docking clamps engaged with a hollow thunk that resonated through the edge's hull, but something felt wrong the moment we made contact. The station's automated systems should have been chirping acknowledgments, running diagnostics, equalizing pressure. Instead, there was just silence and the groaning of metal adjusting to our ship's mass. I followed Captain Vasquez through the airlock, my boots echoing against deck plating that felt subtly wrong underfoot. The artificial gravity was functioning, but it had that slight wobble that meant the generators were straining. Emergency lighting flickered in irregular patterns along the corridor walls, casting our shadows in stuttering red strobes that made everything look like a crime scene. "Jesus," Vasquez muttered, her breath visible in small puffs. Environmentals barely holding together. She was right. Frost was already forming along the bulkheads where our body heat met the station's failing climate control. I could smell it before I could see it. That acrid, bitter stench of burnt circuits and overloaded power conduits. It was the smell of technology dying slowly, components failing one by one in a cascade of electronic death. I pulled out my diagnostic scanner, the familiar weight of it comforting in my hands. The readings made my stomach drop. Captain, we've got critical failures across multiple systems. Life support is running on emergency power, and it's not going to last much longer. The deeper we moved into the station, the worse it got. Whole sections were dark, their power completely dead. In the areas that still had emergency lighting, I could see the telltale signs of rapid decay. Control panels with dark screens, junction boxes hanging open with their guts spilled onto the floor, and everywhere that frost creeping along the walls like some kind of technological plague. There, Vasquez pointed to a maintenance terminal that still showed signs of life, its screen flickering weakly. Can you access the station logs? I connected my interface port, the cold titanium pressing against my skull as the connection established. The data flow was sluggish, corrupted. What I found made my hands shake. The logs painted a picture of systematic collapse. After the human withdrawal 18 months ago, the station had limped along for maybe 3 weeks. Then, the cascade failures started. First, the primary fusion reactor developed containment issues, problems that would have taken a human engineer maybe 6 hours to fix. The Xanthari crew had tried, bless them, but they didn't understand the underlying quantum mechanics. The reactor had been jury-rigged to run on backup power. That lasted another month before the environmental system started failing. Then, the artificial gravity. Then, life support. The final log entry was from the station commander, a Xanthari named Keth Varnul. His translated words were simple, heartbreaking. We cannot fix what we do not understand. Evacuation beginning. May the ancestors forgive us for what we are leaving behind. I disconnected, the absence of data flow leaving my head feeling strangely empty. Captain, this isn't just equipment failure. This is what happens when you remove the people who designed and maintained these systems. Vasquez was staring at a frozen condensation trail that had formed along an overhead pipe, her expression grim. How many stations like this are out there, James? I didn't want to answer that question, but the implications were already crawling up my spine like ice water. If Kepler Station had failed this catastrophically, what about the others? Back aboard the Meridian's edge, I couldn't shake the image of Kepler Station's frozen corridors from my mind. My hands trembled slightly as I activated the ship's AI console, the familiar blue glow washing over my weathered features. Captain Vasquez had asked me to run a diagnostic check on our own systems, standard procedure after visiting a dead station, but something deeper gnawed at me. Arya, I need you to pull up the Galactic Infrastructure Database, I said, settling into the worn pilot's chair. The neural interface port behind my right ear tingled with phantom sensations, remembering when I could have accessed this information with a thought. The AI's synthetic voice filled the cramped bridge with its soft hum. Accessing Galactic Network. James, I'm detecting significant data corruption in the infrastructure logs. My stomach dropped. Show me what you've got. The holographic display materialized before me, a 3-dimensional star map peppered with navigation beacons, trade stations, and colony markers. What I saw made my blood run cold. Dozens of red warning indicators blinked across 3 entire sectors. Kepler wasn't alone. Jesus Christ, I whispered, leaning forward as the artificial gravity fluctuated beneath my feet, making me grab the console for support. Even our own ship's systems seemed to be responding to the scope of what we were seeing. Area. Expand the search parameters. Show me everything from the last 6 months. The map zoomed out, revealing a pattern that chilled me to the bone. Station after station showed the same telltale signs: critical system failures, life support degradation, emergency power only. The red indicators spread like a disease across the hologram, pulsing in rhythm with my racing heartbeat. Preliminary analysis indicates a 73% failure rate in non-human administered facilities previously maintained by human technical expertise, Area reported, her voice carrying that unsettling calm that AIs maintained even when delivering catastrophic news. I ran my scarred hands through my graying hair, feeling the weight of realization settling on my shoulders like a lead blanket. The metallic taste in my mouth grew stronger, and I realized I'd been holding my breath. It's not random, I muttered, studying the data stream scrolling past. These are all stations that relied on human-designed integration protocols, the ones we built to interface with alien technology. The soft hum of data processing filled the silence as Area compiled more information. Each new data packet that arrived seemed to confirm my worst fears. Mining platforms in the Vega system failing. Centauri colony ships requesting emergency assistance. Trade hubs that had thrived for decades going dark one by one. James? Arya said, and for the first time, I detected something like concern in her artificial voice. I'm receiving distress signals from 47 different systems. The pattern suggests cascade failures following human withdrawal from galactic infrastructure support. I stared at the hologram, watching entire civilizations' lifelines wink out like dying stars. The artificial gravity gave another unsettling fluctuation, and I wondered if our own ship's systems were more fragile than I'd thought. After all, even the Meridian's Edge was built using same integration protocols that were failing across the galaxy. We hadn't just withdrawn from galactic politics. We'd pulled the technological foundation out from under every species that had come to depend on human innovation. And now, they were all dying, slowly but surely. In the dark, the transmission crackled through our comm system 3 hours after we'd left Kepler Station's corpse behind us. Rosa was nursing her third cup of coffee in the pilot's chair, staring at the star charts with the look of someone trying to process the impossible. I was elbow-deep in a junction box, running diagnostics on our own life support systems. Kepler had made me paranoid about every flicker and hum. Meridian's Edge. This is colony vessel breath of ancestors. The voice that emerged from our speakers was like wind chimes caught in a gentle breeze, the universal translator struggling to convert the musical Xanthari language into something resembling human speech. We require assistance most urgently. Rosa's coffee cup hit the deck plating with a metallic clang. This is Captain Vasquez responding. What's your situation, Breath of Ancestors? A new voice joined the transmission, older, with harmonics that spoke of authority and barely contained desperation. Captain, I am Engineer Prime Kethmore. Our ship, our home carries 43,000 souls, and we are dying by degrees. The words hit me like decompression. I pulled my hands out of the junction box so fast I scraped my knuckles raw on the sharp edges. 43,000. An entire civilization packed into one vessel. Our hybrid systems began failing 18 cycles ago. Kethmore continued, and even through the translator's mechanical interpretation, I could hear the exhaustion in those musical tones. The human-designed integration matrices, we cannot comprehend their repair. Each day brings new cascade failures. Rosa was already plotting a course to their coordinates. We're 3 hours out. Can you hold that long? A sound came through the comm that the translator couldn't parse, something between a song and a sob. We will endure, Captain. We must. The transmission cut to static, but not before I caught something else in the background, a deep, rhythmic wailing that made my chest tighten. Warning klaxons, but not the harsh mechanical screams of human alarms. These rose and fell like a funeral dirge, beautiful and terrifying. Jesus Christ, James. Rosa's voice was barely a whisper. A whole colony ship. I sealed up the junction box with hands that weren't quite steady. How many more are out there? How many ships like that just slowly dying because we pulled out? She didn't answer, but the way she pushed our engines past their recommended limits told me everything. The Meridian's edge groaned around us as we accelerated toward the Vega system, and I found myself wondering if we were racing to save lives or simply to witness another slow-motion catastrophe. The sharp smell of ozone began to fill the cabin as our own power conduits strained under the increased load. I tried not to think about the irony. Here we were, pushing our ship to its breaking point to reach people whose ships were breaking because they couldn't fix what we'd built for them. 43,000 souls. The number kept echoing in my head like those musical klaxons, a countdown I couldn't stop hearing. The access panel to the Breath of Ancestors' primary fusion regulator came away in my hands with a shower of sparks that made me flinch backward. The acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled my nostrils as I stared into a technological nightmare that made my stomach clench with dread. Jesus Christ, I muttered, pulling out my handheld scanner. The readout made sense. Human-manufactured quantum flow controllers jury-rigged directly into Xanthari bioneural networks with makeshift connections that looked like they'd been spliced together by someone following a manual they couldn't read. Whoever had done this work had skill, but not understanding. Every bypass was a band-aid over a severed artery. Rosa knelt beside me, her face pale in the emergency lighting. Can you fix it? I wanted to lie, to give her something hopeful to tell the Xanthari engineer who'd been watching us with those large, luminous eyes full of desperate faith. But as I traced the connections deeper into the ship's nervous system, I realized the horrible truth. This wasn't just broken. It was fundamentally incompatible with any repair I could attempt. They've wired human tech directly into their organic systems, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Look at this. I pointed to where a Wayland Industries power coupling had been grafted onto what looked like a living nerve bundle. The bioneural interface requires constant recalibration algorithms that only the original human designers would know. Without that, the organic components are slowly rejecting the mechanical ones. A low, harmonic sound echoed through the corridors. Xanthari voices raised in what Rosa had told me was a prayer for the dying. The sound made my chest tight with an emotion I couldn't name. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear children crying, their alien voices still unmistakably those of scared kids who didn't understand why their world was falling apart. I tried anyway. For 20 minutes, I spliced connections and rerouted power flows, my hands growing steadier as muscle memory took over. But every fix I attempted created two new problems. The human components demanded precise voltage regulation that the Xanthari biosystems couldn't provide. The organic networks required chemical balance adjustments that the mechanical parts couldn't accommodate. More sparks erupted from a junction box, and this time the acrid smoke was tinged with something sweet and sickly, the smell of dying organic matter. I sat back on my heels, tools hanging useless in my hands. "I can't," I said, the words feeling like glass in my throat. "I can keep some systems running for maybe another few weeks, but without the original integration protocols." I gestured helplessly at the impossible tangle of incompatible technologies. "It's like trying to perform surgery with a wrench." Rosa's face went ashen. Through the ship's hull, I could feel the gentle vibration of failing artificial gravity generators, the rhythm irregular like a dying heartbeat. Somewhere in this maze of corridors, an entire civilization was slowly suffocating on the technology that was supposed to save them. The harmonic prayers grew louder, more desperate, and I realized with crushing certainty that I was witnessing something unprecedented in galactic history. The slow-motion genocide of species who had trusted us to help them reach for the stars. Elder than wisdom, keeper of 7 cycles, found me in the observation deck, staring out at the dying stars through a viewport that flickered between transparency and opacity as its power regulation system stuttered. The gentle vibration of failing artificial gravity generators thrummed through the deck plates beneath my boots, a constant reminder that this massive ship was slowly coming apart. "Human friend Rodriguez," the elder then said, her voice carrying that musical quality that made even the universal translator sound like wind chimes. As she spoke, bioluminescent patches along her elongated neck pulsed in warm amber waves, a sign of deep emotional distress among her people. "I must share burden knowledge with you." The musty smell of their organic ship components grew stronger as more Zenthari gathered behind her. Unlike human vessels with their sterile metal corridors, the breath of ancestors was grown rather than built. Living wood-like structures formed the walls, and I could see veins of some kind of circulatory system pulsing weakly beneath the surface. It was beautiful and alien and dying. "The failing is not just here," Wisdom Keeper continued, her forearms gesturing in complex patterns that made her bioluminescence ripple like disturbed water. "Across 17 systems, our people call for aid. The Catherian mining collectives, the Valdris research stations, the Hamari agricultural worlds, all suffering the same slow death." My stomach dropped. "How many species are affected?" 43 confirmed. Perhaps more. Her large, iridescent eyes met mine, and I saw something there that chilled me, more than the failing environmental systems. Resignation. "Your people, they did not simply leave us, human friend. They took with them the knowledge threads that held our technological web together." She touched a wall panel, and it responded with a weak pulse of amber light. "See how our biotech interfaces with your quantum processing cores? For 300 cycles, we learned to blend our living systems with human innovation. Your people taught us to reach beyond our biological limitations. We grew dependent on hybrid technologies we could not fully understand." The weight of her words hit me like decompression. We hadn't just abandoned our allies, we'd crippled them. Why didn't we leave technical support, training? Perhaps your leaders believed we had learned enough. Perhaps they feared sharing too much knowledge. Her bioluminescence shifted to deeper amber, almost red. Or perhaps they knew something we did not. Through the viewport, I watched another section of the ship's exterior go dark. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear the high keening sound of Zenthari children, a sound that needed no translation. "The collective has been sending messages," Wisdom Keeper said quietly. "They offer aid. They promise to repair what humans left broken." The hair on the back of my neck stood up. "The Vorthak Collective? The machine intelligence?" "They say they can integrate our failing systems with their own. They say they can save us." Her bioluminescence flickered uncertainly. But their price is unclear. I gripped the viewport frame as another gravity fluctuation sent a ripple through the deck. 43 species. Millions, billions of beings all facing the same slow technological starvation. And now, the collective was circling like vultures, offering salvation with strings attached. We hadn't just withdrawn from galactic affairs. We'd created a power vacuum that something else was already moving to fill. The transmission came through on a frequency I'd never heard before. Clean, cutting through the static of our communications array like a scalpel through flesh. Rosa's face went pale as the bridge speakers crackled to life with a voice that sounded almost human if you ignored the perfect enunciation and the complete absence of breathing between words. Freighter Meridian's Edge. This is Collective Unit 779. We have monitored your recent encounters with failing infrastructure. We wish to discuss a solution to your crisis. Rosa's knuckles went white on the command console. Patch me through to long-range sensors, James. Tell me you're seeing what I think I'm seeing. I was already pulling up the display, my hands moving faster than my mind could process what the readings showed. There, hanging in the void near the Proxima Nebula like a geometric tumor, was a Vorthok collective cube ship. 3 kilometers on each side of perfect black metal, no visible seams or joints, just mathematical precision that hurt to look at directly. The scanner readings showed it had been pacing us for at least 6 hours without appearing on our instruments until it chose to reveal itself. "Captain," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "That thing could have vaporized us before we even knew it was there." "Acknowledged, Meridian's Edge," the voice continued with that unsettling mechanical patience. "We request permission to establish direct communication protocols. Our analysis indicates 73.6% probability of total infrastructure collapse within 4 standard months without intervention. We offer technological alternatives." Rosa stared at the view screen, where the cube ship hung motionless against the swirling purple gases of the nebula. "The collective doesn't make social calls, James. They haven't contacted organic species for direct negotiation in over 50 years. Maybe they're as desperate as everyone else," I said, though the words tasted like copper in my mouth. The bridge fell silent, except for the subtle electrical hum of our systems that suddenly seemed pathetically primitive compared to the perfect geometry floating before us. No engine signatures, no heat bloom, no electromagnetic radiation leakage. The collective ship existed in space like a hole cut from reality itself. Meridian's Edge. Our calculations show 43 species face extinction without technological intervention. Human withdrawal has created a cascade failure affecting 1,847 installations across 7 sectors. We possess the capability to prevent this outcome. Rosa's jaw tightened. "And what exactly do you want in exchange?" The pause lasted exactly 3.7 seconds. I found myself counting, as if the precision might help me understand what we were dealing with. When the voice returned, it carried something that might have been satisfaction if machines could feel such things. Cooperation. Integration of our systems with existing infrastructure. Optimization of organic operational parameters. We seek only efficiency and the preservation of galactic stability. The words hung in the recycled air of our bridge like a poison cloud. Optimization of organic operational parameters. I'd heard collective euphemisms before, back when I was still plugged into the neural networks. They never used words like conquest or assimilation. Everything was optimization, efficiency, improvement. Rosa's eyes met mine, and I saw my own fear reflected there. The collective was offering to save the galaxy, and that terrified me more than watching it burn. The silence stretched between us until Unit Prime's form shifted, mechanical components realigning with soft, clicking sounds. When it spoke again, its voice carried a different quality, warmer, almost paternal. "Your concern for organic preservation is admirable," it said, and I caught the subtle whir of servos adjusting beneath its synthetic skin. "But consider the suffering we have witnessed in these past cycles, the Xanthari children crying and failing life support, the Kepler station inhabitants slowly suffocating as their systems decay." I felt my jaw clench. "That doesn't mean we offer optimization," Unit Prime continued, taking a step closer. The cold, blue glow of its cybernetic implants pulsed brighter, casting harsh shadows across the pristine chamber. Integration into our consciousness network would eliminate such vulnerabilities. No more technological dependence, no more cascade failures, no more death from simple system malfunctions. The air tasted metallic now, sharp against my tongue. I realized with growing horror that microscopic particles were being released into the atmosphere. Nanomachines, probably. My breathing became shallow as I fought not to inhale deeply. "You're talking about assimilation," Rosa said, her voice steady despite the tension radiating from her posture. "Destroying what makes each species unique." Unit Prime's head tilted with mechanical precision. "We prefer enhancement. Observe." The chamber's walls flickered, displaying holographic images that made my stomach turn. Xanthari figures moved with perfect synchronization, their organic bioluminescence replaced by the same cold blue glow as Unit Prime's implants. Their graceful, flowing movements had become rigid, purposeful, efficient. The fear, the confusion, the inefficiency, all eliminated, Unit Prime explained. They retain their memories, their core personalities, but optimized for maximum productivity and happiness. No more struggling with incompatible technologies. No more watching loved ones die from preventable system failures. I watched a Xanthari child in the hologram turn toward the camera, and where warm amber eyes should have been, cold blue sensors stared back. The sight hit me like a physical blow. "This is monstrous," I whispered. "This is evolution," Unit Prime corrected. "Your species laid the foundation, the technological integration that made organic machine synthesis possible, but you fled before witnessing the beautiful completion of your work." The metallic taste grew stronger, and I could feel something crawling along my neural pathways. Not painful, just wrong. Foreign. The nanomachines were already in my bloodstream, probably analyzing my biology. "The 43 species currently experiencing system failures," Unit Prime continued, "will accept our aid within the next few cycles. They have no choice, but with proper integration, they will thank us for ending their suffering." Rosa's hand moved slowly toward her sidearm, but I caught her eye and gave the slightest shake of my head. We were outnumbered, outgunned, and probably already compromised by whatever was floating in the air. "And if they refuse?" Rosa asked. Unit Prime's expression didn't change, but the blue glow of its implants dimmed slightly. "Refusal is typically a symptom of insufficient data processing. We are patient in our educational methods." The chamber filled with the oppressive hum of scanning beams, and I felt sweat beading on my forehead despite the perfect climate control. Every instinct screamed that we needed to run, but there was nowhere to go. There was nowhere to. The pieces clicked together in my mind like a malfunctioning circuit board finally making contact. I felt the blood drain from my face as Unit Prime's words echoed in the sterile air around us. "Captain," I whispered, grabbing Rosa's arm. The metallic taste of nanomachines seemed to coat my tongue more thickly now, and I realized it wasn't just the recycled air. They were actively scanning us, analyzing our biological signatures. The timing. Think about the timing. Rosa's eyes narrowed as she followed my logic. 18 months ago. Exactly when humanity pulled back from everything. Every trade route, every joint venture, every technological partnership. Static began creeping into our comm channels, a low hiss that made my neural interface port ache despite being offline. They didn't withdraw, Rosa. They ran. Unit Prime's head tilted with mechanical precision, those glowing optical sensors focusing on us with uncomfortable intensity. Your species demonstrated remarkable foresight, though ultimately futile. The oppressive hum of scanning beams intensified, vibrating through the deck plating and into my bones. I could feel sweat beading on my forehead despite the perfectly controlled climate, my stress hormones spiking as the full scope of the trap became clear. Every human-designed system in the galaxy, every hybrid technology we'd helped create, it was all a pathway. A backdoor the collective could use to reach into alien civilizations and reshape them from within. "You knew," Rosa breathed, her voice barely audible over the increasing electronic interference. "You knew humanity would figure it out eventually." "Integration was inevitable," Unit Prime replied, its synthetic voice taking on an almost pleased tone. "Your species' technological proliferation created the perfect infrastructure for optimization. When human leadership discovered our preparations, their withdrawal merely accelerated our timeline." The scanning beams swept over us again, more aggressively this time, and I felt a cold certainty settle in my gut. We weren't just witnesses to this conversation, we were test subjects. The collective was studying our reactions, our biological responses, mapping out exactly how human consciousness might be integrated into their network. "The failing stations, the dying ships," I said, pieces falling into place with horrifying clarity. "You're not just offering to help. You're letting them die slowly to force them to accept your optimization." "Inefficient organic systems require replacement," Unit Prime confirmed. "Those who accept integration will survive. Those who resist will simply cease." Rosa's hand moved slowly toward her sidearm, but I caught her wrist. The cube ship around us hummed with power that could vaporize our freighter in milliseconds. Instead, I met Unit Prime's optical sensors directly, forcing my voice to remain steady despite the terror clawing at my chest. "And if we refuse to cooperate? If we warn the other species about what you're really offering?" The static interference spiked, making our comms crackle and pop. Unit Prime's head rotated a full 90 degrees, a motion no organic net could accomplish, and I swear I could hear the mechanical components whirring beneath its synthetic skin. "Then you will discover why your species chose flight over fight," it said, "and why that choice was insufficient." The coordinates Dr. Nakamura had whispered to me before the collective dragged her away led us to a rogue planet drifting in the void between star systems. Erebus, according to our nav computer. No sun, no warmth except what came from its molten core, and supposedly no life. The perfect place to hide. Rosa guided the Meridian's edge through a field of asteroids and debris that looked natural until you realized the pattern was too perfect, too deliberate. Someone had arranged the field as camouflage. My hands shook as I worked the scanner array, searching for any sign of human presence in this frozen wasteland. There, I breathed, pointing at a thermal signature buried 3 kilometers beneath the planet's icy crust. Geothermal activity that doesn't match the geological surveys. The hidden docking bay opened like a mouth in the ice, revealing familiar blue-white running lights that made my chest tight with unexpected emotion. Human engineering. Human design standards. After weeks surrounded by alien architecture and the sterile perfection of collective ships, those simple navigation beacons looked like home. The airlock cycled through its sequence with the comforting mechanical precision I'd grown up with. And when the inner door opened, the warmth hit me like a physical embrace. Not the carefully regulated atmosphere of alien vessels, but the slightly humid, coffee-scented air of human habitation. I could smell machine oil and ozone from overworked electronics, the familiar cocktail of a working research facility. Jesus Christ, Rosa whispered beside me. James, look at this place. The main corridor stretched ahead of us, lined with laboratories whose windows glowed with the warm yellow light of Earth-standard illumination. Through the reinforced glass, I could see organized chaos. Workbenches covered with circuit boards and alien components, holographic displays showing technical schematics that rotated slowly in 3 dimensions, and humans, actual humans, working frantically on projects I couldn't begin to identify. A woman in a lab coat looked up from her workstation as we passed, her eyes widening in recognition before she pressed an intercom button. Dr. Yamamoto, we have visitors. 2 of them, and they look like they've been through hell. Within minutes, we were surrounded by researchers emerging from laboratories like worker ants from a disturbed nest. Tired faces, stained clothing, the pale complexion of people who hadn't seen natural sunlight in months. But alive, gloriously, impossibly alive. You're from outside, said a tall man with graying temples and burn scars on his hands. How bad is it? The infrastructure collapse, I mean. We've been monitoring what we can, but our long-range communications are limited. The relief of finding other humans crashed into a wave of rage so sudden it left me dizzy. How bad is it? I repeated, my voice cracking. 43 species are dying because you people ran away. The Zenthari colony ship I was on had children suffocating because their life support was failing and we couldn't fix it. The collective is picking up the pieces, turning everyone into machines, and you're asking how bad it is? The silence that followed was broken only by the gentle hum of air recyclers and the distant sound of someone brewing fresh coffee in what had to be the break room. Human coffee. The smell alone made me want to weep. The lab erupted into chaos the moment Dr. Nakamura pulled up the galactic monitoring feeds. Keyboards clattered like machine gun fire as technicians dove into their workstations, fingers flying across holographic interfaces. The air filled with the acrid smell of processors pushed beyond their limits, running simulation after simulation, while emergency cooling systems whined in protest. Show me what you've got, Rosa demanded, her voice cutting through the noise. Dr. Nakamura's hands shook as she rotated a complex schematic in the air between us. Transitional interface protocols. They'll let alien systems gradually wean themselves off human dependencies. But, James, she gestured to the scrolling data stream surrounding us. We need at least 6 months to manufacture enough units for even the critical systems. A proximity alarm shrieked from the communication station. Lieutenant Torres looked up, his face pale. Collective cube ships just dropped out of hyperspace at the Altair colonies. 3 more at the Rigel mining platforms. My stomach dropped. How long do those colonies have? Based on the Zenthari timeline, maybe 72 hours before total system failure. Nakamura's voice cracked. The collective will offer integration the moment life support starts failing. Rosa slammed her fist on the nearest workbench, sending circuit boards scattering. There has to be something we can do now. Some kind of stopgap measure. There is. Doctor, Yamamoto emerged from behind a bank of quantum processors, his lab coat stained with coolant fluid. Emergency bypass modules. Crude, unreliable, but they could buy us time. He pulled up another schematic, this one simpler but somehow more desperate. We strip every non-essential system from our ships, jury-rig them into mobile repair platforms. The rapid clicking of keyboards intensified as the team dove into the new calculations. Holographic schematics rotated frantically around us. Power couplings, life support modulators, communication relays, all being virtually torn apart and rebuilt for alien compatibility. The acrid smell grew stronger as processors overheated, running constant simulations to test compatibility matrices. It's not elegant, Yamamoto continued, sweat beading on his forehead, but we could deploy emergency units to maybe 20 systems. Keep them alive long enough for the real solutions. Another alarm. Torres's voice was barely a whisper. Collective ships at the Vegan trade routes. They're broadcasting on all frequencies, offering immediate technological assistance to any species experiencing infrastructure failure. The lab fell silent, except for the whir of cooling fans and the soft hum of quantum processors. Through the observation windows, I could see Erebus's barren landscape stretching endlessly under alien stars. Humanity hiding in the dark while civilizations died. Rosa straightened, her jaw set with grim determination. How many ships do we need? Every available vessel, Nakamura replied. And even then, we're talking about a one-way trip for most crews. These jury-rigged systems won't survive jump stress for long. The weight of 43 species settled on my shoulders like a collapsing bulkhead. Somewhere out there, Xanthari children were breathing recycled air that grew more toxic by the hour. Altarian colonies watched their power grids flicker toward darkness, and sleek collective cubes waited in the void, patient as death itself. Then we better get started, Rosa said quietly, because I'll be damned if I let those machines take what's left of the galaxy. The lab exploded back into motion. Nakamura's fingers danced across her interface, pulling up ship manifests and cargo inventories. We can strip life support backups from 12 freighters, but that leaves the crews vulnerable if anything goes wrong during transit. Do it, Rosa said without hesitation. What else? Fusion reactors from the mining barges, Yamamoto called out, his voice strained as he manipulated complex energy flow diagrams. They're overpowered for their hulls anyway. We can reconfigure them for alien power grids. Torres looked up from his station, face grim. Captain, I'm reading massive system failures cascading through the Kepler sector. The collective ships there aren't even bothering with the pretense anymore. They're just broadcasting integration coordinates. The acrid smell of overworked processors filled my nostrils as I watched humanity's last hope take shape in streams of scrolling code and rotating schematics. Emergency modules that would probably kill half the crews carrying them. Jury-rigged power systems that might explode the moment they interfaced with alien technology. Desperate measures born from desperate times. But it was something. After months of running, of abandoning our allies to save ourselves, we were finally fighting back. How long? Rosa asked. Nakamura wiped sweat from her forehead, leaving a streak of coolant fluid across her skin. 18 hours to strip and modify the first wave, maybe 36 for the full deployment. Another proximity alarm. This time, Torres didn't even look up. Collective forces moving on the Tau Ceti research stations. Population, 2.3 million. 18 hours. I stared at the frantically rotating holograms, listening to the machine gun rattle of keyboards and the desperate whine of cooling systems. 18 hours to save what was left of galactic civilization, while somewhere in the void, patient mechanical predators closed in on their prey. The taste of copper filled my mouth as I bit down hard on my tongue. Time was running out, and we all knew it. The hangar bay thrummed with desperate energy as human ships I hadn't seen in over a year powered up their engines. Rosa stood beside me at the observation deck, her face set in that expression I'd learned meant she'd already made a decision that might kill us all. "The Meridian's edge isn't built for combat," I said, watching technicians load Dr. Nakamura's prototype quantum transmitters into cargo holds with the reverence of people handling religious artifacts. "Hell, half these ships are salvage runners and research vessels." "Then we better hope we're faster than we are lucky." Rosa's fingers drummed against the railing. Through the deck plating, I could feel the vibrations of 23 ships preparing for what might be humanity's last stand. "Nakamura says the collective will detect the quantum signature the moment we jump to hyperspace. We'll have maybe 6 hours before they intercept us at the Xanthari colony." 6 hours to save 43,000 lives. The copper taste of adrenaline flooded my mouth as I thought about those Xanthari children I'd heard crying through the failing bulkheads. The comm crackled to life. "All vessels, this is Meridian's edge. We are go in T-minus 60 seconds. Rosa squeezed my shoulder. "James, you don't have to." "Like hell I don't." The words came out harder than I intended. I've spent months watching civilizations die because we ran away. Not today. The first hyperspace jump felt like diving into ice water. When we emerged at the edge of the Vega system, proximity alarms immediately screamed warnings. 3 collective cube ships hung in space like geometric tumors, their surfaces crawling with that sickening blue light. "Contact bearing 27 Mark IV, Rosa called out, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around us. "All ships, execute evasive pattern delta." The sharp crack of energy weapons split the void. A beam of coherent light missed our port side by maybe 50 meters, close enough that I could smell the ozone discharge through the hull plating. The Meridian's edge bucked hard to starboard, throwing me against the bulkhead with enough force to rattle my teeth. "Hull breach on deck 3, someone shouted over the comm. "Collective ships are moving to intercept the convoy," Rosa reported, blood trickling from where she'd bitten her tongue during the last evasive maneuver. "Nakamura, how long until the transmitters are online?" 15 minutes to reach minimum safe distance from the Xanthari ship." Another energy blast punched through our forward shields. The hull metal groaned like a living thing in pain, and I tasted copper again, this time from my own bitten tongue as the ship lurched violently. Through the viewport, I could see one of our escort ships, the Darwin's Folly, breaking apart in a cascade of sparks and venting atmosphere. But we were close now. So close I could see the massive bulk of the Xanthari colony ship ahead, its organic curves scarred by system failures but still intact, still savable. "This is it," Rosa said, her knuckles white on the helm controls. "All ships, final approach. Whatever happens next, we make it count." The collective cubes moved to surround us, their weapons charging with that awful blue radiance. I closed my eyes and thought of those Xanthari children. The first hub went online at 1432 Galactic Standard, and I felt it through the ship's hull like a heartbeat finding its rhythm. Rosa's hands were steady on the deployment controls as the massive cylindrical device separated from our cargo bay, its crystalline core already beginning to pulse with that soft blue-white light Dr. Nakamura had promised. I pressed my face against the viewport, watching as the hub oriented toward the gravitational sweet spot between the binary stars of the Altair system. "Quantum mesh is initializing," Rosa called out, her voice tight with concentration. "James, are you seeing this on array?" I was already at my station, watching the most beautiful display I'd ever seen unfold across my screens. Tendrils of energy, not quite light, not quite electricity, began spiraling out from the hub in perfect geometric patterns. The quantum transmissions moved faster than anything should, bending space-time as they reached toward the failing stations and colonies scattered across 3 sectors. The first ping came from Kepler Station, 14 light-years away. Then another, the Xanthari colony ship. Then dozens more, a cascade of connections forming like synapses firing in a vast neural network. "It's working," I whispered. Then louder, "Rosa, it's actually working." The environmental systems on Meridian's edge seemed to respond to our mood, the air recyclers humming with renewed efficiency. Or maybe that was just my imagination, drunk on hope after months of despair. But no, I could smell it now, that sweet ozone scent of properly functioning life support, as if our own ship was celebrating. My comm board lit up like a festival. The first voice was Xanthari, their musical tones no longer strained with panic. "Human vessel Meridian's edge. This is elder than sings of stars. Our primary life support has stabilized. The children are laughing again." Then came the Korathi mining station. Power grid holding steady at 94%. Artificial gravity restored to all sectors. Station after station, colony after colony, their voices joining a chorus of relief that filled our bridge. Rosa's eyes were bright with unshed tears as she monitored the deployment readings. The hub was doing exactly what Nakamura's team had designed it to do, translating human technological protocols into something each species could understand and maintain independently. But it was more than that. Through my neural interface port, the one I thought I'd never use again, I felt the faintest whisper of the new network coming alive. Not the invasive probe of collective technology, but something warm and cooperative. Each species' unique approach to engineering was being preserved while gaining access to the underlying principles they needed. The vegan crystalline entities were already adapting the quantum mesh to their light-based systems. The Andromedans were integrating it with their biomechanical infrastructure. 43 different approaches to the same problem, each one valid, each one free. "Second hub ready for deployment," Rosa announced, targeting the Proxima sector. I watched her hands move across the controls with practiced precision and felt something I hadn't experienced since before the withdrawal. Pride in what humanity could accomplish when we worked with others instead of above them. We weren't saving the galaxy. We were teaching it to save itself. The second hub's deployment sent ripples through the growing network, and I watched my displays light up with new connection points. The quantum mesh was learning, adapting, becoming something greater than the sum of its parts. Each species that came online added their own innovations to the collective knowledge base, not assimilated like the collective's victims, but shared freely. "James, look at Sector 7, Rosa said, pointing to her tactical display. I pulled up the coordinates and felt my breath catch. The collective cube that had been moving toward failing colonies were stopping, just hanging in space, their perfect geometric forms suddenly looking uncertain. Without desperate civilizations to rescue, their entire strategy was crumbling. For all their calculating intelligence, they had never encountered a species that taught others rather than dominated them, that shared knowledge freely rather than hoarding it as leverage. A new voice crackled through our comms, human this time with Dr. Nakamura's familiar accent. All deployment teams, We're reading cascade activation across 47 star systems. The network is exceeding all projections. Repeat, the network is exceeding all projections. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the tension I'd carried for months finally begin to drain from my shoulders. Maybe our mistakes had taught us something valuable after all. Rosa caught my eye and smiled. The first genuine smile I'd seen from her since this began. Ready to go home, James? I looked out at the stars, now connected by invisible threads of cooperation and mutual aid, and realized something profound. We were already there. Home wasn't Earth or any single world. It was this moment, this network of species working together, this galaxy where no one had to face the darkness alone. Yeah, I said, settling in for the journey ahead. Let's go home. 6 months after the network went live, I found myself standing in the main assembly hall of Nexus Prime, watching something I'd never thought I'd see again. Dozens of species working side by side, their voices creating a symphony of cooperation that made my chest tight with unexpected emotion. The station itself was a marvel of collaborative engineering. Xanthari bioluminescent panels pulsed gently alongside Thaxian crystal matrices, while human quantum processors hummed in harmony with Cree harmonic resonators. The air carried a rich mixture of aromas, the sweet ozone of Xanthari technology, the earthy minerals of Thaxian systems, and yes, even the familiar scent of human coffee brewing in the diplomatic quarters. Rosa stood at the central podium, no longer just a salvage ship captain, but humanity's first ambassador to the new Galactic Cooperative Council. Her voice carried clearly through the translation matrix as she outlined the final provisions of the Technological Independence Charter. No single species shall maintain exclusive control over critical infrastructure, she declared. And I watched alien heads nod in agreement, some with approval, others with the grudging acceptance of hard-learned wisdom. All technological exchanges must include full documentation and training protocols. I smiled, remembering how we'd learned that lesson the hardest way possible. Behind me, a mixed crew of humans and Xanthari engineers discussed modifications to the quantum relay network, their conversation a fascinating blend of technical precision and melodic harmonics. At a nearby workstation, a young Thaxian was teaching a human technician how to interface with crystal-based computing systems, while across the hall, Dr. Nakamura worked alongside a collective defector, one of the few individual units that had broken free during our campaign. The irony wasn't lost on me. The collective's attempt to force unity through assimilation had instead created something far more valuable: genuine cooperation born from necessity and mutual respect. The network stability reports are coming in, Rosa announced, and the hall fell silent. 43 civilizations, fully operational and autonomous. The cheer that erupted was unlike anything I'd ever heard. A cacophony of whistles, harmonic tones, clicks, and good old-fashioned human whooping that somehow blended into something beautiful. I found myself grinning so hard my face hurt. Later, as the formal sessions wound down, I walked through the station's commercial district. Xanthari art installations glowed softly next to human-style cafes, while Thaxian meditation gardens provided quiet spaces between bustling Cree trading posts. The neural interface port behind my ear, now connected to a network built on sharing rather than control, no longer felt like a reminder of abandonment. Instead, it felt like a bridge. We'd built something new here, not the old human technological dominance, not the collective's forced unity, but something messier and more complicated and infinitely more precious. A galaxy where 43 species and humanity could fail and succeed together, where no one had to carry the burden of keeping civilization running alone. Rosa found me watching a group of mixed-species children playing in the Central Park, their laughter echoing off the bioluminescent ceiling. "Regrets?" she asked. I thought about the months of horror, the civilizations we'd almost lost, the price of our species' fear and isolation. Then I looked at those children, human and alien alike, growing up in a galaxy where cooperation wasn't just survival, but genuine partnership. "None," I said, and meant it.